Negura Productions. Hey, black family, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Subscribe now.
Hello, my name is Jada, and I'm in 6th grade at Riverside Elementary School, and my question is, how did George Washington treat his slaves?
So, how did Washington treat his slaves? The short answer to this is that the conditions for enslaved people at Mount Vernon were fairly typical for 18th century Virginia plantations. The longer answer is that it really depends who you're asking. So from Washington's perspective, he believed that he treated his slaves fairly. He wrote that he wanted to provide them with exactly enough food and clothing as they needed without anything extra. It was in his interest for his enslaved laborers to be healthy and to be able to work, but it was also in his interest to feed and clothe them as cheaply as possible so that he could maximize his profits. So of course, even though Washington believed he was being fair, from the perspective of enslaved people, it's quite likely that they didn't agree. We know that there were several occasions where enslaved people approached Washington to tell him that their rations they received each week were not sufficient to get them through the week. We know that they had to supplement their diets by hunting and fishing and keeping personal gardens in order to get enough variety to maintain good health. We know that they received just 1 or 2 outfits of clothing per year, which meant that the clothing wore out really quickly, given the hard labor that they were doing. And there's at least one occasion where enslaved people were forced to steal supplies in order to patch holes in their clothing. So we know that they were really given the bare minimum because it was in Washington's interest to spend as little as possible on the supplies that he provided for them. We also know that Washington did use several types of punishments on enslaved people, including physical punishments like whipping. We know from Washington's secretary that, according to him, whipping was only used in cases where somebody was determined to be guilty of some bad deed. Of course, their guilt was determined by George Washington or an overseer. There was one incident where an enslaved housemaid named Charlotte got into an argument with an overseer, and he whipped her twice for, in his words, being impudent or talking back to him. And he described the incident to George Washington, who responded that the punishment was very proper. So we don't think that whipping was a constant occurrence at Mount Vernon, but it did happen regularly, and it would have been something that enslaved people knew was a possibility. Another type of punishment that Washington used was sale to another plantation. We know that there were several instances where he sold an enslaved person away, usually after they had tried to escape, and Washington deemed them too troublesome to keep at Mount Vernon. And he also used sale as a threat to others whose behavior he didn't like. And when you're thinking about the threat of being sold, that really brings up a larger point about the treatment of enslaved people. Slavery was a system in which enslaved people lived in fear. Fear of being sold, fear of being separated from their families or their children or their parents, fear of not being in control of their bodies or their lives, fear of never knowing freedom. No matter what their clothing was like, no matter what food they ate, no matter what their quarters looked like, enslaved people lived with that fear. And that was the psychological violence of slavery. That's how slave owners maintained control over enslaved people. So when you're thinking about how enslaved people were treated, the system of slavery treated people as property. And when human beings aren't being treated as people, details like the clothing they wore, the food they ate, or their housing really become secondary.
They want us to forget about our slavery, but the Jews won't forget about the Holocaust. Or the Indians won't forget about the Trail of Tears, but they want the black man to forget about the slavery they did, the rape, robbery, and the murder, how they molested the black men, raped the black man, and raped the black woman as well, and had them sexing their own mothers. Motherfucker, motherfucker. Long live the motherfucker. But we ain't gonna never forget.
And so it's that whole piece that when it catches up, you know how sexist this planet is. Your daughter get raped and you commit suicide. You've been disgraced. Please. And so when you stop and think about there's certain things you can't change. A sexist system all over the world, and yet it's called the mother tongue, not the father tongue. Because when I come over here and they teach me how to talk white, and niggas like me because I sound white, I violate God because the mother tongue. A dog barks and another dog understands it. A cat meows, another cat. Nobody understands me because I'm tampered with my mother tongue, trying to please white folks. Huh? Tampered with the mother tongue. Motherfucker. Oh, that's a horrible. No. We're going to get reparations, and that word's going to get us more money than anything ever happened. And you know who's going to get reparations for us? Them law firms that got 40% of the cigarette settlement. It'll depend on you. All that crap who's in there. Oh, we don't do that. Shut up, mama. And so here's how it works. When the English, and that was a great movie, Bells. See, Abraham Lincoln said something and they made him so mad. He said, slavery is an American problem, and they went off. The nice folks. And Abraham Lincoln says, the textile industry in New York City and in London make more money in 2 weeks than the cotton farmers and slave owners make in 5 years. That's what they're talking about in that movie, man. That textile industry. And that's what's happening now because of you. You see, when I was a little boy, white children didn't get exposed to this. So when I was a little boy, nobody's born a racist or sexist. So the boy says, Mama, how come black folks take all this off of? Oh, they happy. Well, why can they? My mama says she's always happy. Beulah's always smiling. She at their house on Christmas fixing their food, and I ain't got nobody to fix my toys, Mama. But know how it happened when the universe, the Indicals here, children ain't buying bicycles. Did you hear me? They don't do no skateboards, man. It just leaves and you don't even see it. Leaves, you don't even see it. And so when you stop and think about where this piece is, and the universal God don't have to tell you if you don't know it. And the black woman, hurricanes. And in the women's movement, they said, well, you take something this bad and name it after women, so they throw men at it. You can't help them. Black runaway slaves invented hockey in Canada. See who I am? Invented it. Then a guy named Milton Stanley said, let's look at this here. Now it's called the Stanley Cup. How can you didn't have no ice? Oh, this is 2 Olympics back. Jamaica's won the bobsled. They ain't got no snow. Somebody figured out the way you win the bobsled is when you running, you pick up that momentum. When you get on there, ice ain't got nothing to do with it. That centrifugal force. That's when they learned how to run. They didn't jump on the sled. And white folk couldn't handle them. And so when a white boy, prostitution was always in the Negro neighborhood. for him. So none of his friends could see him. The mayor could come down from Chicago to 30 miles, 40 miles away. Nobody knew who they were. So they'd pull up in front of your house. Your mama ran it. And honk the horn. And y'all would come out so they know they're safe and take them in the park. That's where the word honky came from, okay?
Negu Ride Productions. Hey, black family, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Subscribe now.